World Cup fever all across North America, certainly all across America, and certainly right here in Atlanta. We're playing host to a number of matches. We just had our second one downtown at the Benz. A lot of excitement that comes from a big event like this. Also, the potential for economic impact and for individuals to feel some of that economic impact, potentially to cash in a little bit. A lot of people saw this as a chance to showcase our city, of course, to make some money, as you might expect. And also, some folks saw it as a chance to force city leaders to make some tough decisions. But when it comes to short-term rentals, senior investigative reporter Rebecca Lindstrom shows us these World Cup games have not offered up many winners.
So this is everyone's favorite, I'll say probably one of our most popular.
The fans are coming, and Lanier Eccles is just one of nearly 22,000 potential property owners in Metro Atlanta, ready to greet them.
I mean, we're in the trees.
You're literally in the trees, and so because of that, people want something different, want something that a hotel may not be able to give you.
Eccles owns a few properties and manages about 24 others like this treehouse.
I am extremely excited.
But according to AirDNA, a company that tracks activity at short-term rentals, or STRs, about half of the properties in Metro Atlanta hoping to score during the World Cup are still empty.
The city has 5 group stage matches, but then in addition to that, 3 later round matches. And so we expect people, fans of teams, to be waiting until those matchups are set before booking their place.
AirDNA says there is good news. Bookings are up roughly 30% from this time last year. But there are a lot of new properties, about 2,000 of them since April.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup is set to become the largest hosting event in Airbnb's 18-year history.
According to AirDNA, the greatest growth in STR demand has been in Castleberry Hill and Atlanta University Center, both by the Atlanta Stadium. But other parts of the metro, like Stockbridge, Woodstock, and Mableton, have also seen increased interest. But not everyone is thrilled.
The city, the state, the government have completely failed us.
For years, residents have asked the city of Atlanta to enforce rules around who and where those STRs can go. Last year, former City Council President Doug Shipman made this prediction.
I think that the World Cup may be the thing that breaks the logjam.
But that didn't happen. Some fear that policy logjam won't break.
I dove on the ground and waited for a minute.
Until something bad happens, like the shootings that led to a city ban on party houses. Because the only measure to pass in this past year has been a limit on new STRs in a specific neighborhood, Home Park. And despite that legislation, residents who declined to talk on camera say STRs have multiplied.
It's really important for neighbors to report when they see people violating the law in terms of parking and noise complaints. Those are all indicative of large parties.
Keith says residents should contact them too at Airbnb's 24-hour neighborhood support line.
In 2025 specifically, 0.06% of U.S. stays resulted in a party that was reported to us, so extremely rare.
I mean, have you ever had problems with guests?
I think everybody has had a problem with a guest at some point or another. Communicate.
Eccles says residents around her properties all have her direct number for parties or parking violations, whatever concerns them.
We are a business, but I want to be a good neighbor first.
A good neighbor now and long after the games leave town.
All right, Rebecca Lindstrom joining us now. Hello, Rebecca.
Hi.
Always nice to have you in the streaming center here. You laid out sort of the state of play there in that story. Why is it, do you think, that some of these efforts to get a little bit more regulation so far, it seems, haven't gotten enough traction to get moving?
I think that the city of Atlanta is afraid of lawsuits. When I talk with... let's be clear, so few people even want to talk about this on camera. I reached out to several city council members. I reached out to, former council president Shipman. He was like, I'm not on the council anymore. I don't want to speak about this anymore. there aren't really any winners in this discussion, or at least not clear winners that they see. I mean, you've got the homeowners who are frustrated, and it's not just the parties. I mean, that's the thing that people gravitate to as a big example of a potential safety risk. But for homeowners that I have spoken with, this is about day in, day out life. This is about knowing who's coming and going as your kids are playing in the street, recognizing the cars in your neighborhood, knowing that you moved into a community at one point where everybody lived there. You could have little barbecues, gatherings, you know, whatever it was, waving as you were coming in and out of your house, as opposed to someone different every other evening at a home that's next to you. So even if there never were any parties, there are just some people who don't want these things in their community. And so without some kind of strict enforcement, they're never going to change their mind on whether STRs are good or bad. That's why I always try to frame these discussions as we're not saying that. We're not putting a position on whether these should or should not be there. But I do think that there is a discussion that should be had about why the city of Atlanta can't seem to create rules around where they should go or shouldn't go and then enforce them. Because Atlanta does have these rules. They just made a decision years ago that they were not legally enforceable, and that if they tried to enforce them, they were going to get sued. Therefore, you have rules not being enforced, therefore nobody's following them, and you can't seem to come up with policies that you can enforce.
Is there a consensus from, I guess a lot of folks who are driving this conversation in hopes of getting more regulation would be the neighbors of some of these short-term rentals, people who live in the neighborhoods who are not themselves short-term rental operators, although not exclusively, but correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably a big driving force of saying, hey, we want a little more regulation, we want a little more clarity, we want a little more enforcement. Is there consensus among that group as to what they would like to see?
No, because you have everything in short-term rentals, from someone who is renting their basement or a tiny house in the backyard to the investor who has 20 or 30 different properties. They might be in a condo community as opposed to a traditional stick-built community. So you have so many different interests in this discussion, which is why, you know, a lot of them say this is proof that small businesses can have an impact. Think of all the cleaning crews we're hiring. Think of the accountants. Think of, you know, all the people that are involved in making these STRs work. This is small business in action. It is allowing someone to take property that they own and maybe make a couple extra dollars so that they can pay their own mortgage. Like right now, the rules that the city of Atlanta passed, if I remember correctly, it sort of said you can have your house and you can have one other property. And that was kind of it. Then the investors obviously were like, wait a minute. I mean, I don't live in the city of Atlanta and I want more than 2 properties. That's not going to work. What I do think is a positive is that there has been so much discussion about this that a lot of people within the industry have started to self-regulate in a way that they weren't before. I mean, Airbnb within itself has said, we don't do parties. They offer services that can detect sounds if the decibel levels inside properties get too loud. If you're like a host and you want this type of technology, you can have that kind of service. So you'll know right away if there are too many people. We know a lot of them, you know, now have Ring cameras now. So they see how many people are walking in and out. They've got that 24-hour hotline, which again, if you live next to an Airbnb and this is a concern for you during the World Cup or just at any point in time, good number to keep handy, because, you know, they do want to be responsive to avoid the negative media attention around it. So I do think you're seeing a lot more self-regulation of this. But again, that's never going to satisfy the people who just say, I don't want STRs in my community at all. Which again, Home Park, this one neighborhood that's been able to come together, vocalize their concerns, get some legislation passed for their community specific. They're saying even with that, it's not making a difference, not in the way that they want to see.
Really complicated and multi-pronged kind of discussion that's been going on for a number of years. It's going to keep rolling on. We're short on time here, Rebecca. Just in the last 30 or 45 seconds we have you, I think somebody who watches this, hears this discussion, may have that same thought, like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of different perspectives all swirling in this pretty important conversation. A year from now, 2 years from now, where do things go?
I think it'll be exactly the same as it is now.
Wow.
And I think that's the difference you see, like with an HOA, they can immediately make a rule and say, we don't do short-term rentals in our community. But when you are not in that type of environment, you're really up to your council to make those decisions. Maybe more community pockets will be able to get rules like home park and find some tool for enforcement, but I don't think we're going to have anything widespread.
Well, we know you're going to stay on top of it, so if anything widespread does pop up, you're going to be there. Rebecca, we always appreciate you spending a little bit of the afternoon with us here and sharing these stories that are always complicated. You always break them down really well. So thank you.